Hello, welcome back to ADHD Fabrication, home of the Volkswonda, a mid-engine VW VR6 powered EF Honda Civic that is so close to its maiden voyage, I can just smell it. In our last episode, we built this dummy steering rack to hold the tie rod solidly in place so that our rear wheels are locked and no longer turn. In today's episode, we are going to address all the undercut welds by grinding them out and re-welding them a little bit hotter with my 240 welder. We aren't going for show quality welds by any means, just structural ones. We also solved the sway bar clearance issue and figure out whether I torqued the main timing chain gear bolt or not. All in this episode. Stick around to find out.
Devil in a red dress, call 911, I'm a killer. You know I hate to confess. Bang bang, got my hand on the trigger. The devil in a red dress, call 911, I'm a killer. You know I hate to confess. Bang bang, got my hand, call
Alright, so after a non-exaggerated like 9 or 10 years of service, my grinder gave up the ghost probably a month ago. My corded grinder, that is. I've been running this thing since I got a job in the oil field when I was like 18 or 19 or something like that. With 7-inch and 9-inch grinder wheels. That's actually how I burnt it up, is I ran a 9-inch fat grinder disc on it again. Doing a bunch of grinding for probably about an hour, and it let out the smoke for a final time, which it let out smoke probably 5 or 6 times throughout the life of this thing, and then I just kind of like set it aside, maybe blow some air into it and cool it off, and it would run just fine. So rest in peace, little buddy, you did well. So we've been using this, which is my Milwaukee cordless grinder, which is awesome, but it is more so awesome for, you know, you need to cut something in the field or wire wheels and that kind of stuff. Again, you start running grinder disc constantly and it gets hot. So I went out and I bought another one of what should be the same model, or at least their updated version of the model of that little guy down there. So I'm gonna bust that out and we'll get back to doing some grinding with a real grinder. Seems like it's still got the same internals and the same housing. So hopefully I'll be pleased with it and it'll last me as long as this one did. I was just worried because technically this is the same one that they have in that model line, but sometimes they update things and make them cheaper and worse, but this one feels just as good as this one did. It even came with this fancy piece of scrap metal or something. I don't know what that thing is.
Call 911, I'm a killer.
Okay, we got a lot of it to way better of a liking for me. There's definitely still some stuff on the other side of that and whatnot that needs to get welded out, but it's done enough for me to not worry about it as much anymore. That means we're gonna pull the motor apart next, but it was my birthday yesterday. Today's my birthday party thing that we're doing, so people are gonna be coming over. And then I'm going to Colorado tomorrow to get a R32 sway bar so that we can replace the one on there. So I'm gonna go do stuff for my birthday party, and then we'll have a brief intermission of a road trip to Colorado to go get a sway bar. If you haven't been here and you don't know why we need an R32 Mark IV Golf sway bar, it is because of these hoops that they designed into the sway bar on a Mark IV Golf with the VR6 before they made the R32 and had it all-wheel drive. When they added a transfer case and lowered the suspension from the factory a little bit, the sway bar needed to be changed to accommodate, and what they did was made it to where these hoops that go over top of your axle on both sides instead went flat and curved underneath your axle. The reason that we need that for our situation is because of this tubing in the back. This old sway bar that has the hoops going over top of the axles is going to be at risk of contacting our chassis bars or chassis tubing that is installed when the suspension compresses. So to alleviate that, I did a little bit of research, and instead of redesigning my entire chassis rails, I decided to just get an R32 sway bar because they are orientated differently. To get yourself an R32 sway bar online, you're looking at like $160, $350, somewhere in that range. But when a friend of mine was hanging out, I told him to check on Marketplace and see if anybody had one posted anywhere locally, which there wasn't. But he did find one posted in Denver, Colorado, which is about 4 hours away from me, and it was posted for $60. I live in a town in the middle of nowhere that has no computer stores and no hobby shops, so any opportunity to go to Colorado and hit Micro Center and a couple of the train stores, I'm all for. While I was thinking on it, I messaged the guy and got a hold of him, and he told me he would give me everything he had left for his R32 Golf for $50. So at that point, the trip was pretty much set in stone. We were going to Denver to pick up an R32 sway bar and hit Micro Center.
Bad.
Okay, we got back around 5 last night. I didn't end up recording anything, but we did get the sway bar. And we also got some other goodies. I just knew I needed this, and he said there was extra free stuff with it, so I told him I'd take it. Let me get it all pulled out, and we'll go take a look at what we got. Alright, we got our stuff over there, but to start off our loot haul, we gotta talk about this, because it's on the charger. Dude was like, I've got this thing still. I'll give it to you if you want it. I said, absolutely. Actual made in Germany battery right there. If it'll take a charge, then it's definitely worth grabbing. Sway bar, obviously. We've got pressure plate, clutch, dual mass flywheel setup. None of this necessarily is helpful to us. I'm pretty sure it's all just stock. I guess I'd have to take it apart to actually look. But so the story was that the guy had an R32, he got rid of it, but he turboed it and built it for a decent amount of power, and he changed the clutch and flywheel and all sorts of stuff, as well as the sway bar and a couple other things. But that makes me assume that this is all stock. He also said that the clutch was pretty well roasted, so none of this really has value to us, I don't think. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think that the O2M transmission that they put on the 24 valve VR6s all had dual mass flywheels for the VR6s at the very least. And I don't think they had anything different with the pressure plate, but I'll have to do a little bit of looking into that. I don't think any of that is actually any better than what's in there. It's probably actually identical to what's in there. I figured since we have to take that apart anyway, I'll take a look at it and do a little bit of research. Maybe that's better. Maybe that's gonna go in. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Then we got an exhaust heat shield, probably because he put a turbo manifold on it. Doesn't have a whole lot of value to us because we're also building headers and eventually we'll have a turbo manifold on it. We've got one of these, a fuel pump. Probably works just fine. It's probably stock. He probably upgraded because again, he turboed the things. This thing's probably a heat shield for your boot on your axle. Got a, what I assume to be stock starter. Yeah, it's Bosch. Feels fine. I would imagine it probably works. I don't know if they changed it. It looks like it might fit. I don't know why you would have replaced it if there's nothing wrong with it, but it feels fine. Doesn't feel crunchy. And then we have an ESP button. I don't know what I'll use that for, but you know, it can go in my Volkswagen wiring in case I need it. And then we have one of these things, which I'm not even actually sure what it is. It's like a vacuum thing, which is actually cool. Because as long as it's the same, which it does look to be, whatever this thing is on my car is broken from the wreck that happened back in 2018. So, you know, that's just a little bonus part. This might end up getting deleted. I don't even know what this thing is. I need to look into it. But if it doesn't get deleted, then I have a nice new one. Or new old one. That's the extent of my haul. But seeing as how I was just after that sway bar right there, I mean, if the starter works, that's a huge bonus to have on a shelf. Fuel pump is always a huge bonus to have as a spare part on a shelf. That battery over there, if it works, might just be what I use in this car. And then depending on pressure plate and dual mass and all that stuff, when I do some research, maybe we'll end up using that. But regardless, it's a bunch of good spare parts to have for my engine specifically, and a sway bar that we actually need. But while I was going through and inspecting all this stuff, what it did get me thinking of is that I spent $50 for all of this, and that's a major part that we're gonna need. So I'm gonna say that's 50 for that. And then I spent another 50 on this Raceland suspension that somebody took off. So that's 50 for the sway bar. Suspension, it's another 50. Years ago when I bought this EF Honda Civic, I spent about $350. Good luck finding one in the wild for that, but that's what I spent on this thing years and years and years ago. And then the Mark IV Golf that this thing came out of, the kid hit me and his insurance ended up paying for a majority of it, but I did buy the car back obviously. So I think in total I spent maybe $1,500 on the car, making payments on the loan, and then also buying the car back from insurance. $1,500. Then there's this builder block that I got completely bare so that I could rebuild it after I punched a hole in the block. That was supposed to be $50, but it actually only ended up costing me about $20 in diesel to go town over and get it, because the guy told me it was rustier than he remembered, so he gave it to me for free. Block, $20 for the entire rebuild kit, top to bottom for this thing, with some performance parts and some regular parts, because they overbuilt this engine anyway. I think I was running around $1,000 total. That's all the way from the bottom to the top of this engine, completely rebuilt, and I think it was about $1,000, a little bit less than that I'm pretty sure, but I'm gonna say $1,000. I spent $192 on steel, talking about the tubing and whatnot, so I'll say $200 on metal. Mind you, all the plate and everything I already had sitting out in my field rusting. I just had to clean it up and use it. So that means in total, and not even like a copium amount, this is high estimates for almost everything. I'm into my car like a little over $3 grand. I was originally purchasing the car that this engine came out of for $2,800. So Seeing as how everything worked out the way it did, for me to have this nearly running for about $3,000 is, I'd say, a win. Subscribe for budget builds like this. Yeah, I know I didn't torque it because there's no paint mark on it. I'm really glad I took this back apart. Oh yeah, she was loose. Grab a paint pen. Alright, all that for that stupid freaking bolt, but it was finger tight. So I'm really glad that I did that. I'm also really glad that it didn't back out when I started it and broke it in or was revving it up multiple times before I remembered that I didn't do that. And I'm also really glad that we got it done, because what that means is now I can put everything back on this engine and then we can put it in the car. So now I have to go back through and clean up some stuff and put everything back together. Let's do it. The plan for this video was to have this motor all back together, get the transmission back on it, clutch, all that stuff obviously. But my little brother wrecked his car. Had somebody wreck into him, mess some stuff up in the rear end, so we had to get that dealt with first. So what that means is this is where I'm gonna end this episode. We'll get our sway bar put on, and putting this all back together, we'll have to wait till the next episode. And putting new coilovers on it while it's out of the vehicle will all come next video. And in that next episode, we should be able to put that motor and transmission in here and start getting some wiring thrown places and plugged in, and get the transmission cables figured out, get fuel lines routed, put like a boat tank in the front for now so that we can, you know, drive it around. We're just gonna do like the prototype testing phase. I don't think we'll be driving it next episode, but we'll definitely be trying to go for a start in the car. So come back in 2 weeks to check out the next video where we'll be putting the motor back in and hopefully doing a test run in the engine bay in the back of this 1991 Honda Civic. Have a great day, and remember, don't let your meat loaf.